ask for anything more. SKT with the first ban today. They're going to take away the Poppy. Probably not a bad idea.
We're going to see a blue side Poppy first ban. We're seeing a lot of powerful picks. Of course, the big top laner when these two teams met just a couple weeks ago. And of course, the big top lane in the meta was Echo. Sunday's Echo in Game 2, especially against KT.
Well, there goes the
massively powerful.
Well, it looks like SKT setting up for a Maokai first pick here, banning a lot of these top laners. So we'll see exactly how KT is going to respond. Obviously, the Sivir still on the board too, and we saw the priority coming in from SK Telecom yesterday.
Do you maybe take away the Zillion or try to ban something away from score here?
I don't think you play the Zillion if you're planning on banning it in Game 1 yesterday. I think you are attempting to show that, well, I guess you do.
All right.
It's a bit surprising. They're going back.
Knows.
They're going back to that. I guess they figure they weren't strong enough at using that pick.
My question is, though, we saw 4 games in a row where Jin Air banned Karma against Faker. Will we see KT continue with this trend? Because they actually dealt with Faker's Karma, and again, Game 1 of that Telecom war very well.
I don't think it's worth it. I don't think you need to ban the Karma, and I don't know if Jin Air needed to ban the Karma yesterday.
I don't think they did, honestly, especially when Corki was available and you can play the Corki and just play poke into it, but the Corki is going to be banned away, and that means the Maokai first pick, they're prioritizing that over the Sivir, so Grave Sivir probably going to come in here for KT.
Also, means there's going to be quite a pinch on the top lane pool with Maokai, Poppy, and Echo all out. The last top laner we saw from Someday that was a bit of an adaptation was the Kennen that he played against the Echo. Not a good laning matchup, but he picked it for the team comp and prevailed with it nonetheless. So will they save red side 5th pick for the top lane and go with something safe for Fly? Because Lissandra is available.
And they are going to be playing heavily around that support Trundle too, which has been played in 50 games so far this season and has an over 60% win rate.
Hachani, 10-0 on the season.
10-0 on that Trundle, that's right.
That's insane.
So it's his second most played after Alistair too, so we see that priority. Nidalee actually taken by score, really switching it up. So KT perhaps looking more towards a poke style of composition, but with Corki and Azir already banned out, what is their mid laner going to be?
It's worth knowing that the reliability of Nidalee's games goes down when you don't have targeted CC in the lanes, and Maokai, of course, is the pick du jour to give a great ganking top lane for Nidalee to go and gank for, but will be more difficult theoretically depending on where the champion pools go.
All right, Graves, Alistar, the other 2 pickups for SK Telecom. Not too shocking there, just some comfort picks for these guys.
And now they can feel free to pick a tanky top laner if they want. KT Rolster with the Alistar already known as a support champion. But they could just go with the blind pick Lissandra.
Wouldn't this incentivize you to take the Trundle?
Yeah, sure, why not? Go for it, take the Trundle against the Maokai. You may want the Braum, at least you can block some of the Graves damage if they do choose to go. Obviously, with that clear double AD carry that Bang will be playing one as well, you could block a lot of that damage coming in. Could see the Gnar pick up.
Oh, Fizz would be interesting. Don't know if we're going to see that get locked in. Yeah.
We're just going to go for the Lissandra here. Put Fly on a comfort champion.
Fizz is also a top lane counter pick to the Maokai for
I was
going to
say, yeah, this could be for someday, couldn't it? All right, they're going to lock it in.
All right, so it's Fizz and Trundle, so they're going to try and really use that Trundle ult on the Maokai and then blow him up with the Fizz.
I think that's really smart. I think you want to handle the Maokai for sure.
You know what the greatest irony is? The last time I believe we saw a Fizz counter pick to Maokai was the grand final last season, where they baited Someday into taking the Fizz and just crushed him with Marin's Maokai. Because remember, Marin said famously in the interview before the grand final, I'll pick Maokai whenever it's available. They went for the counter pick and it failed in explosive fashion.
Yeah, but that had been going on for a lot of last summer. We saw so many good dives, play from Marin and Someday. With that Fizz pick into the Maokai, it's back again as a possible counter pick, and there we go. Lucian and Lissandra will be the locks. Low range, relatively composition, not going to be the Sivir, so at least you have some more flexibility if you get that rapid fire cannon with the Lucian to execute some sieges. But SKT really just showing the same kind of pick priorities they did yesterday, but they really failed to execute in the early dives yesterday. They really didn't do as good of a job as I thought they might.
And I'm sure they know that too. So coming in today, they should be aware that they need to kind of pull the trigger on a lot of those situations that they held off on yesterday against Jin Air. Otherwise, they're going to have more trouble than they did against Jin Air. I was wondering if we were maybe going to see a Fiora, but with that Fizz already locked in, I don't know. There we go. The Varus makes a bit more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Varus definitely a strong laning champion against the Lysandra, and also you're going to want to round out some of your damage considering you already have a Fizz and an Italy. I guess the big question for me is, what is Fizz's build going to be these days in the top lane?
I mean, that's an interesting question, Monty, but just look at this comp. KT's comp only does one thing. It only sieges, has nothing resembling a frontline, not even a Braum to imitate a frontline. Trundle's more about range disengage with the pillar rather than necessarily being a frontline tank to very late. And then SKT are running a Rocksteiger special, double teleport, looking for picks. If SKT ever get deep wards, it just feels like there's so many different targets on the side of KT. For Maokai and Lysandra, just wreck the backline.
Well, you also have so many engage options, too, between the Maokai, Lysandra, and the Alistar, so a lot of options for flanking here. KT going to have to be very careful when it comes to vision. But, interesting statistic, KT actually has the highest wards per minute, or wards cleared per minute, out of any team in this league. So they've been very good at denying vision and denying flank wards. So this is a composition that might suit them well.
Yeah, and against a jungler like Blank that's been performing well lately, but still a bit of a rookie. Score and the rest of KT should be in a good position to deny that vision too. See how much of an impact that has in the game.
And my prediction is if KT can get the massive 1-4, if they have Fizz just running all over the top of Maokai, killing him in side lanes, the comp makes sense. But if somehow SKT go even, I really worry for KT.
Well, we'll find out. The Telecom war continues. SKT versus KT, a battle to see who goes to the finals. Let's see who takes game one. And welcome to Summoner's Rift, the beginning of our last playoff match before the grand finals. SK Telecom T1 versus KT Rolster, the most storied rivalry in Korean esports, and it will be another great best of 5 today. KT, amazingly, coming into this one with a bit of an edge.
SKT are going to be very incentivized to keep close track of this level 1. They want to extend the time when Maokai's out of lane and doesn't have to face Fizz as much as possible.
True enough, that Fizz. You gotta wonder how that's going to turn out.
Not a fun champ to get lane swapped on if you're playing the Fizz.
Probably not.
Well, we're not going to see any deep wards either, so KT running into this one a little bit blind someday. Right here with
some ability power.
Some ability power. Let's talk about the character of these teams a little bit, because actually when we break it down in terms of damage percentage, you really get to see where these two teams shine. SKT as a whole does a lot more damage per minute as a team than KT, just like they did against Jin Air when compared yesterday. Are going to be seen on that ward, but we're going to get standard lanes. KT, though, the interesting thing about them is that they are one of the few teams, as we see perhaps a little bit of action right here.
Yeah, maybe, as Wolf and Bang come into the tri-brush, Achani and Arrow just back off casually.
So one of the things that's interesting about KT is, while Someday is very high when it comes to percentage of his team's damage at about 25%, both Fly and Arrow are on the lower end of the spectrum in their respective roles. But what it means is that Someday, Fly, and Arrow all do basically 25% of the team's damage over the regular season on average. So there isn't really like a big carry force on this team. They really win or lose together as a unit, and everything is so incredibly equally split up amongst their primary carry positions.
That hasn't always been KT's identity, especially at the start of the season. We remember them playing a lot of delay comps, trying to get to 5 Dragons, trying to get Fiora big, because of course Someday still has that carry identity in the top. The meta has changed a little bit, and there are definitely games where Someday dominates the damage percentages. We don't really see Fly on champions that traditionally pick up really high DPMs outside of maybe the Varus that we see him on this particular game. But
Varus can certainly do a lot.
As the meta has shifted, there definitely is less opportunities for Someday to carry, unless, of course, he pulls out a very old counter pick like this Fizz.
Yeah, I find it interesting, too, because if we think about SKT's games yesterday, it was a lot about individual outplays. When we saw Faker and making those and Bang making those really big plays. But with KT, when we think about their use of Zillion, it's about coordination. It's about using teleport well. It's about using the minion waves well to dive turrets and operate as a unit.
Oh, Score getting chased out by Blank actually early on.
I mean, to me, the thing that makes KT different when it comes to Zilean is that Fly's laning phase on Zilean, it doesn't look like this weak laning champion that often can struggle in a lot of matches. He actually has a dominant laning phase on a champion not known for dominant laning phases. And then when Score gets in the enemy jungle, he always has the minions controlled in a way to either have it pushed in if he needs to or have it pulled back if that suits it. I think it's just, again, the character of Fly, who does have mastery of champions we don't see a lot of people play. Malzahar and Zilean, probably the most ample of examples.
Yeah, true enough. Pretty quiet game so far, though. Everybody in their own lanes. The farming's been farmed. Oh, Wolf tries to go for the engage, gets a double pulverize. As soon as I start talking, man, the trades start happening. A little bit of aggression. Arrow taking the worst end of that. Wolf can sustain his way back up there pretty easily.
And we come back to your question during the Champ Select, Monte Cristo. What type of Fizz build are we expecting? Because AP itemization in general, has been pretty heavily nerfed on the 2016 patch. There was some changes around Fizz's W that meant AD Fizz was less of a priority, but still had some power. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see Trinity Force, but honestly, it just depends what Someday's really been thinking about.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious because so much has changed in the itemization ever since last year, so it's a much bigger question right now as to what this Fizz is going to be going for, and it really changes too how it works against the Maokai, because you remember that big change in terms of counterpicking Maokai now that he has more magic resist, it's harder to counterpick him. We saw some players sort of returning to that Gnar counterpick earlier on, but you have to remember that a lot of the reason why that matchup worked was because the damage from Hyper was magic damage on the stack. So therefore, you got a lot more value from getting the 3 stacks off and chunking out the Maokai. Now that he has more built-in magic resist, it's still good, but it's a lot less good than it was before. And I don't know how the Fizz really stacks up.
In a meta where everyone's double teleporting, you need instant impact, like for example the Maokai Twisted Advance. The sort of setup you're required to, as a team and as an individual, undertake to have to pull off the Gnar often catches a lot of teams unawares unless it's really in meta and everyone's been extensively practicing it. So Gnar always has seemed like a risky choice in this current meta.
Well, so far so good for Duke's Maokai. He's been able to push Someday back in lane pretty easily at this point, coming out ahead on the life totals as well. Fly poking on Faker, but I mean that's no surprise really in this matchup. Lyssandra's going to definitely be taking some damage early on.
You do want to force that TP also just to limit the playmaking options of the Lysandra, so keeping that lane pushed up is very important. You see there, Pink Ward dropped courtesy of Score. And I think when we come in tonight, one of the big matchups that we have to talk about is Blank versus Score, because while Blank had a solid season for a rookie at the professional level, remember he was playing in the LSPL, the secondary league in China last year, he's still not quite there with Score. And I think the biggest factor that kind of can really show you this is that Score right now has the highest kill participation of any jungler in the league. And Blank has the 3rd lowest, and he's behind Bubbling and Bang. So when it comes to the actual being in the right place with his team and contributing to kills, he's there a lot of the time for first blood, which is something, that's an instinct you can get out of solo queue. But when it comes to actually contributing to the way his team is going to win and getting involved in those team fights, Score is way ahead of him, way ahead.
He's got a lot more experience, too.
Yeah.
He's even pulling ahead in CS already in this game.
And there's another way to look at the kill participation stat as well, and it's that when it comes to Score, as you mentioned, he's the experienced head, he's the captain of this team. A lot of the play in the early game runs through him, and we've seen games where Score is behind early, and KT often have no identity till the grouping phase later in the game. When Score gets ahead, he sets the tempo for the team. So a lot of this game, when we talk about CJ, the games run through Mad Life, Score, honestly, takes a lot on his back, and it makes sense. These are the 2 veterans, these are 2 guys who were around at the opening of League of Legends in Korea, and Score still has that identity on this team.
Yeah, they've been there from the very beginning. Wow, Faker gets hit with the spear before he takes the E, and that was very close. Didn't need to use his flash in the end, though.
That was actually really risky. Chain of Corruption rooted him in place for that spear, and Score, he may have had a chance to flash for that, but I don't know whether the Ring of Frost was up or not. That was going to be kind of the determining factor alongside the Frozen 2. They get the chunk out, and Faker has no TP, so he will be losing some CS right here. An early pressure advantage really going the way of KT.
All I have to say about Score is, can you pinpoint a handful of games or a multitude of games where Score had a bad game and KT still won, because I certainly can't. He's almost always one of the big benefactors or one of the big thrusts of a KT victory.
Yep, that's right. So we finally see Someday pick up his first item. Goes for the cowl. So a little bit more of a defensive build, I suppose, from this Fizz.
I mean, tank Fizz was... I mean, when we saw Fizz finally first enter the meta, we saw some very DPS-heavy builds. Zatai, of all people, was loving Bloodthirster, Trinity Force. Played the Ruin King was often a damage item, either second or third. And then it became Trinity Force, Frozen Heart, into tanky. I still expect there to be some semblance of damage, but starting with Spectre's Cowl is really respecting the base damage values from Maokai.
I think it just shows you that Duke's already kind of winning this matchup up in the top lane. Like, Someday is not really putting a lot of pressure on this Maokai. He's down in CS. He's been down in life in every trade. It has not worked out so far.
It is a bit curious, though.
Yeah.
It's a bit curious. I'm a little bit confused why you would pick the Fizz, but again, a lot of champions benefit from the tanky build because of the strength of Iceborne Gauntlet right now, which is still definitely an option, at least later in this game. But is that really going to be better than playing a Gnar?
Well, that's the thing, Monty, is that, again, if Someday does not have significant kill pressure on the Maokai, if KT cannot manufacture a 4-1 and they don't get some crazy snowball in the mid game that makes team comps irrelevant, I just don't see how champion for champion, 5 champions for 5 champs, KT can hold up to what SKT has drafted.
Well, their hope would be just to win the poke combat and try and siege and then pray they can disengage in time, but
Disengage from Maokai, Lissandra,
that's
Alistar.
going to be rough. It's going to be real rough.
Oh, yeah. Well, Blank finds score again in the jungle. He's going to push him back a little bit. Nobody collapsing, though. Blank continues to be a little bit down in CS. KT Faker just has been so low in that lane for so long. It's actually amazing that he hasn't had to use that flash yet.
Max is on the W, so still looking for damaged auto-attack trades. It isn't just an E-Max of Playful Trickster, just for matching wave clear. And naturally, if you're not maxing Playful Trickster, you will lose in terms of wave pushing. That's why the CS advantage is there for Duke.
Someday's just getting crushed, though, in that lane.
Yeah, the tower, though, is getting so low just in this 1v1, and that is a major concern because KT, they need to keep the pressure on with this composition. They have to be the ones grouping up and sieging in this early game, and going behind a tower would be not great.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, you never want to be the siege comp that can't siege. Otherwise, you are not a comp at all.
That's fair.
I believe that's how the quote goes.
You're just a bunch of dudes on the Rift. Blank over the wall. He's been doing a good job of keeping score. Wow, Faker's going to chase. There's the ult score in a lot of trouble. They try to pick it up with the collateral damage, but it's not enough. The heal keeping score alive.
Wow, Flyer to flash for that chain of corruption, but really nicely played by him. Score getting out just barely.
Man, that was very, very close.
Did get 2 summoners for 1, though.
Yeah. Faker's flash still up, though. The summoner that will never be used.
He's been really poised with it so far.
Yep. Certainly has been.
You just have to wonder, when they have such good wave clear in mid of the ult power.
Yeah, Silver ult used. Trying to go into this. They thought maybe they could make a play with score, but there was a ward there. They saw him coming in, didn't work out.
You definitely don't make that play when you're so low and there are 2 TPs up on the other team. Just making sure that it was going to be okay in that bottom side, but there's no actual opportunity to go in.
But this tower is not going to last much longer.
You just follow the logic. You're like, why the Fizz? You have to think about, again, we remember the counterpick nature, but you look at the other lanes. Strong wave clear from Varus, strong wave clear in the bottom lane. Obviously, it's going to be Fizz pushed in against the Maokai, so you think, okay, is he going to build a damage item and then have the jungler gank for the lane and try and get a snowball? Well, that didn't happen. He built tank. So building tank in this lane strikes that, okay, the jungler's not going to pay any attention to top. But it doesn't really feel like Score has been doing the niddly thing of holding down Blank in the enemy jungle. He hasn't been ganking the other lanes either. So it just doesn't feel like the pick has really done anything. It's almost like they're picking Fizz and then just stalemating in the early game, which is very bizarre.
And this is where you wonder, why not Nautilus?
Why not anything else?
Yeah.
Any other champion that builds Iceborne Gauntlet, Sunfire Cape, and Spirit Visage.
Well, I mean, they're trying to be clever, and it's, you know, maybe not on paper the worst pick, but, and it also is a best of 5 too. So if this doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world for KT.
Well, he got a Dark Seal, so he's got that going for him.
There you go. Yeah. There's some damage. Oh, he's got Bombi's Cinder now too, so.
And we have to
if
think
he
it's going to
stands
be
next to Duke, there's going to be damage there too.
And it's going to be the meta build. It's obviously going to be Sunfire Cape,
Oh, yeah.
Iceborne Gauntlet.
Of course.
And Spirit Visage.
The top laner build.
Yes.
That's right.
It's just how you're going to do damage to the good old Spirit Visage Rush Malka.
I'm withholding my judgment, Papa Smithy, because I haven't seen this. Maybe, since I don't know what the Sunfire Cape Iceborne Gauntlet Fizz will do to the Maokai, perhaps there is some sort of power spike that someday knows where he's going to be able to play all in.
I mean, look, it's very similar to Trinity Force, right? It's still going to be very similar. It's just going to be lower damage output, and I just feel like if Duke matches him in tank items, there's just no way for those 3 core items to actually give kill threat to something.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you in theory, but I am waiting for the practice.
All right. Give me 20 minutes. We'll be back to
yeah, pretty sure.
We will see.
I'm pretty sure you're right, but
you know, Faker's been able to do actually a decent amount of damage to the mid lane turret as well. Someday coming down now. Ping's going. SKT knows he's there. But Duke's going to just use this opportunity to get a lot of damage done on the turret. Yeah, Faker just calmly backing away. Someday going to track back up to the top lane. But what's going to happen to his turret by the time he gets there? It's going to take more damage. That's the answer to that question.
Oh, 2 analysts we couldn't come up with.
I'd take
spoilers.
That. I got that one, guys. Don't worry.
Spoilers.
Oh, teleport coming in. They're going to try to catch score, but Faker's a little bit late on that one. Now, they had Maokai there, too. Duke was in position, but didn't work out.
Lane pressure in top, lane pressure in mid. Why not go for the invade?
I suppose. Wow. Trundle's always really upset about putting those pillars down. All right, well, the lane's stalled out in top lane. They're going to just keep that pushed, I suppose. Actually, Faker's turret's taking a lot of damage, too, hasn't it?
Such as Varus.
Yeah, it does happen.
I'm concerned about SK Telecom, just because this is the same sort of passive play style, misuse of teleports in the early game that we saw yesterday. And remember that they can, why would you teleport to the mid lane right there? You want to teleport away from the mid lane? Yeah, sure, maybe you're going to try and catch score out, but that's a low probability play, most likely. And instead, you give up quite a bit of pressure. And not only that, but you miss your opportunity to try and get kills with Wolf playing this Alistar who can dive the turrets, the Maokai able to dive the turrets. You really just want to get into the side lanes there and set up those kind of plays instead. So,
well,
kind of just a lackluster teleport use from SK Telecom.
I suppose in the end they got the first dragon, not maybe because of the teleport, but just because of everything else going on. So SKT at least has a little bit of a lead anyway.
But that game too was very different, I think, Monty, because you have to look at the comps and the texture of the comps. There was always going to be a time for SKT where KT would have probably both a team fighting and a siege and a wave clear advantage. In this game, SKT have the team fighting advantage in the late game, so there's less pressure on them to make as many early plays.
Yeah, that's true, but I still think you're running into a power spike issue at a couple of items here where it's going to be very difficult to defend against KT sieges.
Difficult, but with Maokai and Lissandra, Alistar, they'll find a way to engage. They have so many tools, whereas in the previous game, if they missed their window at Game 2 yesterday, there were no tools for SKT to win, as was evidenced.
Well, SKT just going to lose their mid lane turret.
Well, they didn't have TP. They used a TP earlier. They had a ward behind. They may have been able to make a play there had they had the teleport up, but without that ability, not really going to be doing a whole lot. Score just covering the bottom side right now.
Yeah.
They start to move down there. Arrow giving a helping hand in the mid lane, so slight gold lead now for KT.
Oh, Faker's going in on a fly. Uses that W. There's the ult. Fly cleanses that immediately. They try to get him with the Graves ult. Can't do it. Faker finishes him off for first blood. So SKT responding in a big way after losing that turret.
That's actually really well played in terms of the micro, just because Fly did not respect the burst coming out from Graves. The downtown damage is what did the difference.
Score over the wall onto Wolf. There's some damage.
The layering of CC bought time for Graves to get close enough to get the kills. That was actually really well pulled off by SKT.
Yeah.
Beautiful gank.
And that's a little bit of what we saw yesterday too, where the early game may have looked kind of lackluster, but then these individual plays, this great mechanical ability brings SKT back in these situations. At least they're consistent. Oh, and they're going to try to dive the turret here too. Teleport coming in from Duke. Arrow already fairly low health. Wolf misses his pulverize though. It's okay, they got plenty of damage anyway. And another pick by SKT. Score may find one on a Faker. Nope, Faker getting over the wall just in case, or just in time rather.
They had a big minion wave under his turret, so didn't teleport, lost his turret anyway, and certainly has not done any chip damage to Maokai's turret at all. So SKT, massive amount of gold advantage there.
Well, that's what you want to see, though, from this composition, is the setup on plays like that. Now, they played around that very nicely. Bang had nailed his culling, his ultimate, onto Arrow while Hachani was on the roam to the mid lane. Already had him chunked out. Tried to get under the turret right after that. They have pressure in the top side, so free TP there for Duke. So they get, in one of the very rare instances you will see this, they got a top lane turret with nobody there while diving bottom lane at the same time. It's hard to get better than that for SKT.
There's the unique thing Fizz gives you. No wave
There you
clear.
go, yeah.
Well,
He lets
yes,
you lose your turret.
If you don't max E, that is going to happen.
Nice. The hidden buff.
Hidden feature.
That's right.
For good old Fizz.
Now with turret losing action. Well, they've got the mid lane turret in mind now, and it's only got about a fourth of its health left at the most.
I mean, a lot of people have been talking about the power of items propelling certain champions like Echo to being just unassailable top laners that can't be beaten. Fizz has always had good base values, so you can definitely track the logic of the meta build being this Sunfire Cave Iceborne Gauntlet item-focused build, and Fizz fitting the mode, but against Maokai, I just struggle to see how it's going to be pulled off.
It didn't used to go this way, right? The way this used to go is that Fizz just 1v1 kills the Maokai.
All the time.
Year, ridiculous. We saw that happening. KT responds to the Herald by taking out the bottom tier 1 turret, so they jump back into a turret lead. So that objective is taken. Blank with the Herald buff.
Yep, they do have that slight gold lead right now. It's basically dead even, though. Dragging up in about a minute 20. SKT was able to get that first one, so we'll see how much priority they put on keeping those stacks going.
KT just have to be so vigilant with the pink ward lines and ensuring there's no flank pink wards for Duke, for Faker. Right now, Duke has no teleport, but we'll be up in a couple of minutes. Fighting around objectives, setting up anywhere. You know, this is a comp that wants to set up and poke with their sheer range and wave clear. Setting up is going to be so tricky for KT to respect all the initiation options SKT has.
Yeah. Absolutely. Our score is way ahead in CS in the jungle. Also, even levels, though.
Crazy power farm. Rylai's rush, so no Rod of Ages.
Yep.
Clearly wants to have the power now, but also the health that Rylai's provides.
A little bit of everything.
Has been the more common Nidalee build.
Yeah.
Echoes into Rylai. Rylai's recently among the junglers here in Korea.
Been some shenanigans games where it's been Runic Echo into Rylai's into like 25-minute Rod of Ages just cause though.
Oh, Bang popping the culling as he gets chased a little bit by KT, but they have to back off almost immediately. And that's a lot of damage for Chani to take right before the dragon spawns. SKT doesn't exactly have the best vision around the dragon pit right now, but we'll see how much they want to try to go for it. Well, with Wolf recalling, doesn't look like they're going to be worrying about it in the near future.
It's interesting to take note that Someday didn't use his teleport to follow Duke. Duke's going to have his teleport up again. Someday hasn't used his in the whole duration. So all the threat of teleport has given KT is more time for Someday to try and stay competitive in farm. Remember, he lost his turret, hasn't taken a counter turret, and is still considerably behind in CS. So this is just KT buying time for Someday to hit those items that we talked about.
This better be an epic power spike, Papa Smithy. Otherwise, I'm going to be super disappointed in this Fizz pick.
You won't like Monty when he's disappointed.
So that's most of the time.
Do not yeah, okay, that's true. That is true. I know specific people that really don't like you when you're disappointed. Everyone thinks you're okay most of the other times, though. Well, Dragon's been alive for a little while now. KT still has the angle on it. Faker found out. Gets out with the glacial path. Someday waiting to see if he needs to TP down there, but it doesn't look like they're going to need him this time. See how much SKT wants to fight this.
Well,
I don't know if they really do.
KT is just trying to clear vision so they can get some poke down and take this a little more safely. Remember, they do not want to really fight this dragon. They want to make sure they can get it uncontested. That's going to be difficult with the waves where they are right now.
The offending items have been completed, Monty.
Dragon started by SK Telecom, too. They're going for it. I meant 2 also, not the old SKT team. All right, they should be able to get it. Teleport coming in though someday. Looks like KT, are they going to actually fight it? Hachani gets jumped on by Wolf. SKT with an easy kill there. Now Fly in trouble. SK Telecom, Betlink with the double kill, and it looks like they're not done their score. Trying to run, Arrow gets picked off by Bang, and SKT takes the mid lane turret. They're going to take out score, and they are absolutely routing KT Rolster. Someday wasn't even there. He went back to base.
There is no reason, if you are KT, to take that fight. You need to set up and poke at the dragon in advance. You absolutely cannot go in for that fight later on.
Oh, Faker gets a W, but I think Someday's got an easy kill there. Yep.
Well, they got something
Revenge of the
for
rabbit.
it, but
well, the Baron's being
dicey.
taken. Yeah, Wolf trying to zone Someday away. He'll headbutt him. And that should do it. Baron getting lower. SKT gets it. No buff onto Faker, but doesn't really matter. That's still a huge, huge lead suddenly. 4,000 gold, the Baron, a couple turrets, a dragon. That went well for SKT, didn't it?
And this comp is what I'm talking about, Monty, is that who's going to walk up to the Dragon if they're even hoping to contest it? It needs to be Someday, the only one with any semblance of a health bar with the 5 champions they pick. Nidalee kites back, Varus kites back, Sivir kites back. I guess Fizz can be your front line when he builds super tanky, but instead he goes for the deepest teleport possible. Everyone is split away, and all these high damage poke champions just get caught and die because SKT's comp is super reliable, and KT's comp, if any of the variables fall away, doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, and especially nobody's going to be really afraid of a tank Fizz flank teleport. It's not really
so much
a concern that SK Telecom is going to have. They have enough field to easily deal with that. So this game, I mean, you just got, if you're KT, you cannot play this composition that way. You have to be getting the poke first and not reacting and trying to team fight after SK Telecom is already grouped up and can collapse on you so easily.
And again, in this comp also, Monty, the KT, I don't mind the Fizz flank teleport. It's just no one actually goes in with the Fizz. Sivir is not going to be sending Varus into the front line, or Score is not tanky enough on the Nidalee. I guess Trundle can do it, but it just isn't the synergy for flanks to be a game plan KT can pull off.
No, definitely not.
You know, quietly, Bang's been just destroying people on this Lucian, too. Whoa, Arrow. Speaking of people getting wrecked. Another kill for Blank. Kachani running around underneath the turret, trying to slow people up. Faker, Zonias, just to buy a little bit of time. Someday gets in the back lines, actually gets the kill onto Bang. He's going to end up paying for it, though, in the end. Here comes Fly, though. There's a lot of damage on that Varus. SKT needs to be careful. Faker pops the W, gets out after locking down a couple of KT players. But KT not done yet. Fly in a little bit of trouble. Duke gets a kill, and now he's got the 1v2. Someday chasing Wolf down. So a bit of a messy team fight. But in the end, SKT still coming out, well, at least even anyway.
Well, I mean, right at the end there, Duke just went big, gets a double kill. Faker still putting down the pressure, too. So
I guess ahead really is what you want to call that.
Yeah, 5,000 gold. There's another turret thanks to Faker, who was able to retreat right back into the mid lane.
I think we have enough data points now, Monty. Effectively, Fizz is being a tank echo. That's what he's performing in his fights. It's great chase. In a long lane, he can get kills. But SKT, they have so much engaged in this turret dive. Arrow's dead instantly, even though he had the spell shield available. And while Someday gets a lot of cleanup kills, he is not doing enough solo to make up for the fact that no one can kill Maokai. And the front line from SKT versus no front line from KT means that the other 4 just can't do anything while Someday's on his chase mission.
Yeah, nobody has the DPS either once that Sivir goes down to really deal with Duke. See him just rolling through right here, takes out Fly.
It is a 0-3-1 Sivir with 2 items, so she can't do anything to Duke either.
Wow.
What's even more impressive is Duke hasn't even bought a QSS against Hachani yet.
Yeah, it's a good point. He's not afraid, man.
I mean, he doesn't have to be afraid in this particular game. When you
think
only
so.
have that one frontliner, it just doesn't matter. You only have one tank to deal with. You're going to be happy just ignoring him and hitting the back lines anyway. Once that pillar is down, there's not really anything else that they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, so 6K gold lead now for SK Telecom. They're up 4-2 in turrets, 2-0 in dragons.
The difference between Fizz and the Echo, the chase potential is similar, but the laning phase is so different. It's on full display here. No ranged wave clear like Echo's Q. Much less powerful laning phase, and unless Score is going to camp your lane and gank the opponent relentlessly, just feels like you're all-inning on chase when every other thing is falling apart for KT.
And there was no way for Score to do that either this game. With the Varus in the mid lane who's going to be pushed up, Score has to be there to provide vision and pressure to deny the Lissandra. And so that's what kind of the game plan was, leaving Someday a bit high and dry.
Pretty much. SKT coming back for the turret. They take it. Ult onto Arrow. Wolf tries to go for the engage. Arrow flashes out of it, though. Wolf pops that Alistar ultimate. He's getting slowed up a bit. Faker, though, threatening with the glacial path, and KT's going to back off a little bit. Meanwhile, it's a great Someday chase. Okay, yeah, he's going to get the
only one with
TP.
TP.
Yeah, that's right, and he's coming in behind SK Telecom. Duke trying to run down. Faker caught in a 3v1. Someday gets the ult off. Nice zone used by Faker to negate that. SKT trying to back away from this one. Someday is not going to let him, though. Duke coming in. He's finally there, and the threat from that Maokai is enough to get SK Telecom out of the fight safely.
A really nice 5-man disengage, but you see the difference between the teams. Duke can just stand in the front, throw out saplings, charge up his Q, just be the person to buy time for every other member to move behind him. And KT don't have that same option, even though KT are the team that want to have someone in the front when they kite back after taking an objective.
Wow. Speaking of objectives, SK Telecom gets their third dragon of the game.
Just doesn't work as a 5-man unit, I don't think, Monty. I didn't like the draft when we saw it play out, unless you have this really big strategy to just kill the Maokai. But after all the buffs and just with the change in itemization since the last time we saw Fizz as the meta counter against Maokai, it's just not the same world.
That was the X factor, is the Fizz going to be able to actually split push effectively? Remember too, Fiora was up also.
True, they hovered over it.
If you want to go for a 4-1 split push, seems like the Fiora is just a better option right now. Recall that Fiora was banned out every single game by Jin Air yesterday, and we've seen it work. We saw it work. Expression played it into the Echo. You do have to build a little bit more glass cannon these days, but it can still execute the split push.
It was Karma and Fiora banned every game. The Karma, of course, we've seen plenty of Faker Karma. We've only seen the one game recently, as you mentioned. The only recent data point is Expression still making us, to some degree, a believer of Fiora top, but clearly Duke's been spamming it if it was deserving of 4 bans. And someday, probably the most famous Fiora player in the league.
Yeah, very true. SKT takes about half the health off of that turret, that very short but effective push. And with the kind of lead they have right now, with what we've been seeing happening in fights, it kind of looks like SKT is going to be closing out game 1 at least as the winner, but how quickly and how methodically can they make it happen?
Very. I mean, they can just go to the Baron right here, turn on them when they try and engage.
That's the idea. Speaking of turning on people, someday it takes a bit of damage.
As long as they commit to the Baron and then the turn, they will have an opportunity to just re-engage onto KT, and KT's not going to have the time to get the necessary poke that they so desperately require.
But Duke's got his teleport now too, so he'll be able to get over to the fight anytime they need him. KT, though, they know what's up. Just trying to keep SK Telecom off of that Baron for now.
So hard for KT to get vision down when they have such a squishy core. Only really Nidalee is slippery enough next to Trundle to put down wards. They don't have 5 different people that can prop up and look for vision, so they have to be very careful when they do.
Very true. SKT just waiting for that opportunity as they keep baiting the Baron. Duke, the split pusher in the bot lane, it looks like.
Iceborne Gauntlet Thornmail, here we go.
Yep. He's ready.
No Mercurial Scimitar yet, sadly.
March of the Ents. He's a battle tree. Well, Faker takes a lot of damage from that Nidalee spear, but he'll just recall. He's got his teleport, if he even needs to use it.
Can you just think of other things, Monty, that have come in the meta since last year? Grasp of the Undying, of course, means that Maokai is now the ultimate sustain lord in lane, so...
double health back, nice.
Yep,
so
sure.
the itemization doesn't really work as well, and then with no itemization, both Fizz has been nerfed and the Keystone Mastery makes him more sustainable in lane, so you have to say at some point, the indirect and direct signs are there. Just exclaim, probably avoid the Fizz counterpick to Maokai.
Surprising.
Well, it's not working this time.
Well, I don't think it works any time.
Not anymore. Honestly, it didn't even felt like it worked reliably by the end of the meta.
Yeah. That's true.
Teams had mostly kind of figured out the laning matchup. We weren't seeing like multiple kills from Fizzes against Maokais anymore.
True. SKT just playing it out safe. Got that nice 7,000 gold lead still. And not going to start the Baron quite yet.
It's just, what can KT do? They are a 4-1 team that has no map control. They clear waves and push them back into the enemy. They're just trading farm. They can never actually enact any of their win conditions because Someday has no pressure, and if they group as 5, they're against double teleport with only a single teleport themselves. They're just waiting for SKT and hoping they win a lucky fight somehow.
Well, they're doing a good job of at least keeping him off the Baron with the poke that they have. They don't actually have to commit to the pit, and the amount of poke damage Baron itself has done for SKT is quite large.
Here we go, Baron being started by SK Telecom now. Score throwing some pretty effective spears over the wall.
Score and Blank at equal level.
Here comes the teleport coming in for SK Telecom. Faker's gonna come in the back. Oh, Chains of Corruption misses from Fly. Baron getting very low. Baron taken by Score though. A kill immediately comes in favor of SK Telecom. Can they win this fight against the Baroned up KT though? Someday in the back lines gets a kill into Bang. SK Telecom could be in a bit of trouble. Faker dueling with Fly on the side, pops at Zonia's. Another kill comes in for Blank though. Varus gets the win in the mid lane battle. SK Telecom finally turning this one around. They lost the Baron, but they're going to resoundingly win this team fight. Only Fly gets out.
You can't force anything, Monty. You just wait for the enemy team to rush down Baron and steal it, apparently.
I guess so.
Score did a great job of getting it there, and I guess the coaches weren't lying. Korean Smite is better than Chinese Smite.
It's definitive now, yeah, it's true.
Remember, we said KT couldn't siege 4-1. They weren't winning the split push war. They needed SKT to give them an opportunity, and here's a glorious one for Score. Okay, they don't win the team fight afterwards, landslide, but that KT's win of the Baron, the claiming of something on the map, is more than they've got for the past 20 minutes of this game.
And now at least they still have the Baron buff on to Fly, who's one of the better people you could actually leave it on if you had to lose 4 members of your team. So perhaps they can start to set up a siege right here. 1 TP down, only Duke's TP that they really have to worry about for an engage. So KT, they've got to do something, anything with this Baron buff right now to scramble back into this game, as unlikely as it is for them to win.
I think they're going to need to worry about Dragon. It's coming up right now. SK Telecom would be going for their 4th.
Felt like SKT could have started the Baron up, peeled off, and just focused on the Dragons. The easier objectives and the weight of Baron and 5th Dragon would have been enough, but now KT are starting this Dragon, but it's so risky.
Yeah, Duke teleporting in from behind right now. Teleporting from the enemy jungle. Faker comes in with a big W, ults himself, slows down KT. Someday on the run right now. Wolf has that Alisar ult going. Faker with the Zonius to stay alive. Nice damage from the collateral damage coming in for Blank, but there's a kill for Fly. KT turning this round into a 5v4. Duke goes in, Duke goes down, and SKT has to back away now. They're going to lose the Dragon, and that's another team fight. Didn't go so well for them.
Well, they didn't have a flank that time. They tried to engage just head on, and the kiting power of KT, you can't do that. When you have so many ways to get a good flank off, you need to actually execute it there well. Otherwise, you're just going to walk into the chain of corruption and all the crowd control that KT has to keep you off of that very squishy back line. And the other factor is, Duke still doesn't have QSS. That's actually kind of huge at this point in time because the amount of gold value of stats that Hachani is stealing from him is immense.
And he's gone for the health, so clearly he's not looking to itemize into QSS just yet. Of course, he could sell the Giant's Belt, I guess. Maybe that's the most power he could buy in a single item purchase for tankiness, but it's going to definitely be an inner turret going down for SKT. And if we don't see a replay, there was also the issue of, on the one hand, Faker was flanking from just below the Dragon Pit, and then it was actually a very deep teleport into the Wolf camp from the Maokai. The Maokai was at the fight so late that honestly so much damage had gone down, so much trading had happened before Maokai did anything in the fight. We're going to see the replay. Look at where Maokai is and look at where Lissandra are, and these are the 2 teleport flankers from SKT.
You see the Maokai coming in, but he's just, as you said, not part of this fight. Faker drops his ultimate early, but has to use that Zonias before the Maokai even arrives. Now there's no chance for Faker to do more damage without just getting blown up.
Duke's health bar counts for nothing in this fight because he's so late. They don't leverage his tankiness into anything, and that's just poor communication from SKT.
Well, also, he got Trundle ulted, so...
He got Trundled.
He got Trundled super hard.
It hurts too. And so that lead cut down to about 5,000 for SK Telecom.
Got Medjai's.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, he does. Huh, all right, that's bold.
I love Someday.
Very bold.
I mean, we saw this before from him on the Echo.
You know that if you ask him, he'd pull out the old Korean excuse of, well, I had 1,400 gold. I mean,
might as well pick it up.
Might as well bought it, right?
That's right.
He did end up selling it in that game.
Oh, he will eventually.
Yeah, that time it didn't work out too well. But.
As soon as he dies, but
Yeah.
Here's my guess. Is it going to be, here's the question, Monty, is it going to be a Guardian Angel he sells it for, or a Void Staff? That's the fun question.
I think the GA
I think
probably is
GA.
going to be a more useful.
It is someday. I can harbor hope for a Void Staff.
the Magi's isn't enough, huh?
Nope.
It's a lot of hope. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about this Fizz, but he is 5-1-2.
I mean, he had a really
and he has
slow
been killing
start
Bang.
lane, though.
He has been killing Bang.
Yes.
Now, could he do this on other champions like Echo if it hadn't been banned, or Poppy? Yes. Yes, he could.
And it's worth statements like that. Like, for example, looking back at Faker's performance, 2-0-9 on the Zillion, he didn't die, but we knew it wasn't that clean. And we know that so much of the early sacrifices for KT were as a result of the no wave clear, risky counterpick that clearly isn't doing anything in a 4-1 sense. And a champion that either teleport flanks better or splits better, I think, would have contributed so much more for KT than just all-inning on 4 or 5 item Fizz that happens to be pretty powerful at 35-minute team fights. You don't pick champions for 35 minutes, otherwise Amumu would be one of the strongest junglers in the game because he's great with 6 items and level 18.
Suppose that is true.
Just more asterisk to it than actually his team fighting quite well right now.
Faker coming up in the top lane. KT knows, though.
Someday looking for the teleport. You know, he's just answering Duke's push.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I feel like, too, if SK Telecom hadn't been a little bit sloppy about that engage, you know, Faker starting that way before Duke got there, that fight may have gone a bit differently, too. But maybe I'm the only one.
Oh, it definitely
could
on
have.
the ball there. Maokai has so many different things to play around that if he's not at the fight, then obviously all his gold counts for nothing, and then if he doesn't have QSS, then a lot of what he's earned is diminishing returns on those items. So Maokai in general just completely answered in the previous engage.
Sure.
But SKT still have map pressure. They're still taking the KT blue buff on spawn. KT again just pushing lanes because we return to what does KT do proactively? And with this comp, the answer is not much. They still don't have the tools to really make much happen. Like if you're KT right now, Monty, what are you trying to force? Because it doesn't really seem like there's any clear objectives for them to take.
You're just praying for them to screw up around Baron again.
Ah, yes, the Baron throw hope. Well, it's time.
Yep. It is time for Baron.
Both junglers level 18. Score's farming has meant that he's always been equal level, and one of the reasons he claimed that last Baron was that he was level 16, just like Blank, despite having no access to his jungle for so much of the game. Well, he's got to steal an opportunity again.
He's got to. Teleport coming in, though. Looks like they may turn on this one. Yep, that's right. Duke comes from the side onto Arrow. Arrow pops that spell shield, tries to get away immediately. Nachani chasing Duke back. SKT funding through this choke. Here comes Someday around the side. A kill for Score already. SK Telecom, they're not going to win this one, I don't think. Not unless Wolf makes a big play right here. And it's too late. His big play is going to be getting killed. Oh, Someday, though, they're turning around. Wow, Faker locking people up. Blank and Bang doing the damage. Flashing away is Faker now, though. And it's still a 3v3 that's looking a little bit dangerous for SKT. Dodging some skill shots. Whoa, not that one, though. Not that one.
Holy smokes.
Fly gets the kill onto Blank, and now Score chasing Faker down. He nearly gets hit with that spear, but he gets away. And these fights, man.
Again, SK Telecom botched their engage, and we see the lack of QSS is really hurting them because Maokai came in first right there, but Maokai and Lissandra have to go in at the same time. Otherwise, that's just going to happen. Trundle ult hits Maokai, everybody just turns on to Maokai, and he's dead before anyone else on SK Telecom can do anything at all.
Pretty much.
Exactly what happened, Monty, and it was an over pursuit by first Duke and then Someday, because both of them pursued into no vision bushes. Look at where Duke is. He's completely alone once again. Even though Lissandra starts this fight looking for an engage, the Trundle pillars enough disengage, and before it was Faker taking free team aggro, this time it was Duke just dying for free in the front line. So once again, they get no value out of Maokai, both from the Trundle ult and everything, and then it's Someday disrespecting and walking into a 3-man gank rush, dying himself. So both frontliners really don't count for a lot, and that's why the fight goes pretty even, all things considered.
Speaking of fights, looks like there's one going on down by the Dragon. Wolf tried for an engage. Everybody backed off, though, for the moment. Dragon is up again.
It's important to note, too, that the support right now is basically making Maokai half of what he is, because he's steals 20%, then another 20% over 4 seconds. And he's also taking about 35% of his life over that same period, which is why you see the Maokai dying so quickly.
Right.
Worth knowing that the health, of course, has to go down with Magic Resist.
KT going for this Dragon. It's getting lower. Faker coming in. Dragon taken by KT Rolster as Wolf engages Someday. But he's actually away from his team right now. SKT with a great opportunity. 2 kills come in for Bang already. Someday just got separated from the rest of KT Rolster as he escaped to the back of the Dragon Pit. And I think that opened up a big opportunity for SK Telecom.
Question now is whether they can close this game.
I wonder. Achani a little bit caught out by Faker, dueling with him. Going to use that ult. Here comes Score, though. But while all this is happening, SK Telecom rushing down the middle of KT's base. Nice move by Faker. Goes out on the E. Dodges the spear. Slowed down by the pillar, though. SKT, at the very least, will be claiming an inhibitor, and they may be able to end it. Arrow and Fly, the 2 big damage dealers on this team, have a long time before they're up again. Someday goes for a last-ditch effort, trying to playful trickster his way to a defensive victory, but it's not gonna work. There goes Achani, and SKT taking down that second Nexus turret, taking out the Nexus, and SK Telecom gonna win a very back-and-forth game 1. What a series this is gonna be. GG.
SK Telecom going for one of their reliable mid-game power spike, very rocks Tigers S-comps, and in general pulling it off quite well. If you squint a little bit at this Fizzpick, it looks a bit like a Draven, Monte Cristo. It looks a bit like KT trying something special, thinking they have this read on the meta, like some other teams perhaps in NA have tried to do, and their read just didn't come true. The Fizz, couple of good fights, but 45 out of 50 minutes was pretty useless.
Hey, at least the top laner built tank items, all right? There is a bright side to this, at the very least.
Is that a bright side, really?
Well,
I don't think so.
in the grand scheme of things, actually, yes, Doug. But in any case, I mean, coming into this game, we did see a little bit of a lack of engaged presence in the late game from SK Telecom that lost them a couple of fights they probably shouldn't have lost. But that last Dragon, overcommitment by KT. If you're KT there, you need to be worried about the Baron. You can't be worried about them taking Dragon number 4 at that point in the game. It's not really that relevant. And SK Telecom finally finding the good engage on that last fight to clean it up.
And KT only got the meaningful objective from stealing away a Baron that SKT didn't peel off well. They had a comp that couldn't force anything. It didn't 4-1. It didn't really force things to happen. And SKT, you teleport enough with Lissandra and Maokai, you'll eventually get the engage and win the game.
I think what's interesting about this, though, is what happens when KT does have a better composition. They drag this one out for quite a while.
Well, I think we're going to find out when we come back, guys. SKT versus KT Game 2.